Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. In this one we are going to look at my team selection for game week 8. Gonna have a little bit of a think about when I plan to play my wildcard because I haven't used that yet, and also gonna have a look at a graphic that I've made which kind of takes into account when to own certain premiums. We know that the pricing is tough this year, we can't have them all at once, so I've made a graphic to look at the fixtures on when to own each premium, so stay tuned for that. But to start with, we'll have a quick recap of my game week 7. I got a green arrow from 2.5 million to 2 million, so not a huge one, 54 points. So let's go through it. We had Henderson in goal. If you've watched one of these videos before, you'll know that I don't expect any points from a goalkeeper. I am just glad that I'm not spending much money on them. For example, someone like Edison conceded, he's 5.5 million. Raya conceded, he's 5.5 million. I've got no interest in spending money on these goalkeeper positions, and I'm not expecting many points in it either. So yeah, Henderson 3 points. Rico Lewis got his assist this week, so glad I owned him for that. He looked pretty good. He keeps starting, so all the time he's still starting. I'm happy. He's very, very cheap. Porro, slightly disappointing with the 1 point. The Spurs fixtures get very good now, as we'll come on to. Gabriel with 2. He's been disappointing over the last couple of weeks. I got him in for Leicester and for Southampton, both at home. No clean sheets, which is slightly frustrating. Then Saka, obviously 16 points, huge week for him. Was kind of close to captaining him, but to be honest, I was probably never anywhere other than about 70-30 on Haaland. I wasn't ever at 50-50, so yeah, it was pretty close, but well done to those who did go with him. Bruno Fernandes, 3 points. He continues to disappoint, along with Eze with 2 points. Both of them continue to disappoint. I'm kind of happy to keep them both, which I'll go through why in the next part. And Bomo just keeps scoring. He is fantastic. He's as close as it gets to nailed right now, in my opinion. Or essential, sorry. He's as close as it gets to essential, in my opinion, right now. He's just got everything you want from an FPL asset. Rodgers, 3 points, slightly disappointing, but at his price, we can't expect him to return every single week. Then, disappointing captaincy with Haaland only managing 2 points. City were pretty disappointing in general, to be honest. I know they won the game, but they were pretty disappointing. And Havertz with 8. Again, he could have had so much more. He's returned twice in the last 2 weeks, but he could have had so much more in the last 2 weeks. So, owners have done well, but can also feel slightly disappointed. Then no points on the bench. Let's move on to game week 8 now. Right, we can go over the goalkeepers pretty quickly. Valdemarson, as always, on the bench, and then Henderson in the starting 11. Don't plan to use a transfer on that spot. I mean, Henderson isn't great, but none of the 4.5 million goalkeepers are great. Flecken would probably be the one I'd choose if I were on Wildcard this week, but I'm not fussed enough to make a transfer. I think transfers are pretty precious this season, given we can't have all the premiums at the same time. So, as I always say, I'm just glad I'm not spending money on that position. Nottingham Forest away isn't even a bad fixture. Obviously, Chris Wood has been brilliant this season. He's continued to score goals, but I don't mind Nottingham Forest away as a fixture, if I'm honest. Then in defence, I'm happy with my back line this week. West Ham at home for Porro is a pretty good fixture. I expect Spurs to score quite a few goals this week and in the coming weeks, to be honest. We've seen recently that Porro isn't getting into those attacking positions as much, but he's still a pretty attacking fullback. I'm not really expecting a clean sheet from Spurs. Kind of never am, if I'm honest. But happy to own Porro this week for that fixture. Rico Lewis, Wolves away. Again, another fantastic fixture. It's just a case of hoping that he starts, basically. I do have bench cover this week. I've got Konzo with Fulham away. So I think that's quite key. If you do have Rico Lewis in your team, make sure you have bench cover because he's not going to start every week. He is starting more than not, which is pretty useful at his price, but he's not going to start every single week. So I don't particularly mind the Fulham away fixture for Concert if he's fit. If not, then I go to Dunk with Newcastle away, which isn't ideal, but it's a playing player, so can't be too disappointed if I end up needing to go that deep onto the bench. And then Gabriel has Bournemouth away. Again, not the best fixture, but Arsenal defence is the best in the league up there with Liverpool, so hopefully he can just get a bullet header out of nowhere, which he seems to do quite a lot. He's had a ridiculous amount of shots for a centre-back, and we know how dangerous Arsenal are from set pieces. So happy with my defence this week. I probably won't be making any transfers in defence, so let's move on to the midfield. Okay, on to the midfielders now. So I've got Saka with Bournemouth away. I am looking at getting rid of Saka this week. Now, I don't think that he is a must-sell or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. He is absolutely fine to keep. He's a great option this week. But we'll go through why I'm looking to sell him in a minute. Bruno Fernandes has Brentford at home. He's been thoroughly disappointing, but this fixture is good. Brentford defence hasn't been strong or solid or anything in the realm of that. Brentford defence has been pretty bad. I mean, Wolves put 3 past them last week. So I'm quietly confident about owning Bruno Fernandes this week. And just in general, to be honest, Man United's fixtures are pretty good in the short to medium term. So I'm happy to own him. Morgan Rogers with Fulham away. Not kind of an ideal fixture, just a mediocre fixture really. He has just been brilliant for his price. I mean, Aston Villa going forward are pretty good. So I'm not expecting loads from him this week, but happy to own him. Eze has Nottingham Forest away. Now, the Forest defence has been pretty good for a while now. However, last week they conceded quite a lot of shots. And Eze is second or third or top 5 for shots this season. So I'm hoping Eze has a lot of shots this week, and hopefully one of them actually goes in, which has been pretty rare this season. So again, he has actually got quite good fixtures coming up, so I'm pretty happy to own him. His underlying stats are brilliant. I think that the returns will come. I know I say that every single week about Eze, but I think it is likely. And then Mbomo doesn't have the best fixture, Man United away, but Man United's defence just really isn't that great, so I don't mind it. It's not an unbelievable fixture, but pretty happy with him, to be honest. So let's move on to the forwards. Okay, so the forwards here, I obviously have Haaland, who I have the captain's armband on right now. Can't see that moving, to be honest. Wolves have been the worst defence in the league this season. Granted, that is probably in part due to the fact they've had really, really tough fixtures, but I just think that this and next week can't really look anywhere else other than Haaland for captaincy. So happy with him. And then I have Havertz, who, again, it's a pretty good fixture this week, but there is a very, very high chance that I will be selling Havertz this week. Then João Pedro is on the bench. It looks like he's out for kind of a mid to long term, so I could look to sell him. Problem is, he's just so cheap that I can't really get anywhere from him, and as we'll go through in a minute, I kind of want to switch between premium players over the next few weeks. So given that I've got 7 other attackers, I'm probably just happy to hold João Pedro on the bench for now. There may come a time when I do want to sell him, but I don't think it will be this week. So the moves I'm looking at this week are Spurs attackers. Spurs have generated the highest XG of any team this season, and now they come into a run of 4 really, really nice fixtures. This week it's West Ham at home. I think it's Aston Villa the following week, it's Palace, the following week, which is, again, pretty good. Then they have Aston Villa, and then they have Ipswich. So these next 4 fixtures are absolutely brilliant, and like I say, they're kind of top 5 for all of the attacking stats that you'd want. So goals, expected goals, shots, big chances, everything you want from an attacking team, they are top 5 for. So the move that I am pretty much definitely going to make, unless we get news that he's out is I'm going to bring Solanke in for Kai Havertz. Now, similar to Saka, I think Havertz is absolutely fine to keep. He's been brilliant this season, and I'll almost definitely be bringing him back in at some point. But I'm essentially just taking a bet on Spurs fixtures against Arsenal's fixtures. I mean, Arsenal really don't have good fixtures coming up. They play Liverpool pretty soon, they play Chelsea pretty soon, so I'm just taking a bet on the fixtures essentially. So Havertz to Solanke is pretty likely to happen. The next move that I'm going to make, as you can see, I've got 2 free transfers in the top corner. And as I mentioned, Saka to either Brennan Johnson or Son. Now, we've heard from Ange, Son is pretty much fully fit. I mean, he didn't say those exact words, but he expected him to be back after the international break, and nothing's changed. He's been part of group training, so he's pretty much back. Just one bit on Saka. I don't think there's anything in this injury or knock. I think Saka probably will play. We won't actually get any relevant information from Arteta, as he pretty much never says anything useful in his press conferences. But I think Saka's fine to keep. I think he will play. Again, it's just the fixtures play. And what we'll look at now is I've got a graphic which shows the fixtures for the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, City, Liverpool, Spurs. And I'll talk about kind of moving between premiums and when I'm looking to Wildcard. Okay, so as you can see in the title of this slide, I'm looking at a Gameweek 12 Wildcard. Now, this graphic shows the fixtures for the top 5 teams that have the top premium assets. If you want to save this graphic and use it for your planning, I posted it on my Twitter or X. My account is at BradMayerFPL, so you can save that or bookmark it on there if you want to use this. But the key things here, so if we look at Arsenal and Chelsea's next 4, they're pretty bad, right? So Bournemouth away is good for Arsenal, but apart from that, they both play Liverpool. Chelsea and Arsenal play each other, and then they've got Newcastle in the mix, Man United, which aren't the worst fixtures, granted, but not the best. So for me, I think I'm quite happy to take a bet against Arsenal and Chelsea players. I mean, I do have Gabriel, and we'll probably have to keep Gabriel because I don't have enough transfers, which I think is probably fine. But the likes of Saka, Havertz, Palmer, I'm happy to bet against those players for now. Don't get me wrong, they're all absolutely fantastic. They've been great. They will continue to be great. I don't think if you own them, you need to sell them by any means. But for me, I'm looking to play the fixtures, which means going against these players for the next 4 up until Game Week 12, where you can see that Arsenal and Chelsea's fixtures just get great from Game Week 12. So what that means is essentially, if we look at Spurs, their next 4 are great. As I mentioned, West Ham at home, Crystal Palace away, Aston Villa, Ipswich at home. I'm basically going to back Spurs attackers, so Son, Solanke, maybe Brennan Johnson, but more likely Son in this 4 game week period, and potentially Man City. To be honest, if I had extra transfers, I'd maybe be looking at Foden as well, just for the next 2. Game week 8, game week 9 are absolutely fantastic. So my plans are to do Saka and Havertz to Solanke and Son for the next 4 weeks, and then look at a game week 12 wildcard where I can get rid of these Spurs players as they play Man City, and they have a couple of not so good fixtures after that, and I can get in the likes of Palmer, the likes of Saka, the likes of maybe Havertz, the likes of maybe Jackson for Arsenal and Chelsea's good run from Game Week 12, which just, to me, I will always play the fixtures, so that seems to make sense, and they're quite nice swings in Game Week 12. Now, the other thing I'll look at, I see kind of Foden, Son, Palmer, Saka as one set of premiums. I then see Salah and Haaland in a different kind of category. Now, obviously, the next 2 for Man City are absolutely fantastic. After that, it's not so good. Bournemouth away, Brighton away are okay. Then Tottenham at home is probably okay. Liverpool away, but not as good. So my plan from game week 10 is to potentially move Haaland out and move on to Salah, as Liverpool, you can see here, have Brighton at home, Aston Villa at home, Southampton. That Southampton fixture is quite key as well. I want Salah for that Southampton fixture for sure. So that is basically my plan, rough plan. We may get to game week 10 and I don't want to lose Haaland, or Salah is maybe injured or something. But that's kind of my rough plan on how I plan to rotate these premiums. So essentially going against Arsenal and Chelsea for the next 4 weeks and going with Spurs instead, and also going with Haaland for the next 2, and then potentially moving to Salah from game week 10. Then in game week 12, I'm penciling in a wild card. I'm not definitely gonna use that week as a wild card week. If I get there and I don't feel like I need it, maybe I've got enough free transfers to switch between these premiums without wildcarding, then I can hold it until game week 16, 17, 18, something like that. But then, yeah, on a game week 12 wildcard, it would look something like Saka, Palmer, and probably Salah for that Southampton away fixture. So that's my rough plans. If you've got any questions on this, let me know in the comments. If you liked it, make sure you drop a like and make sure you subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.